think in a class of, let's say, 25, 26-year-olds or maybe 21, 22 years old who have all come to do an MBA, I think risk ability is democratic. If everybody has started out same, I think everybody has pretty much same risk ability, but risk appetite might be different. I think these are two completely separate concepts, and that has what is to be looked into. I do believe the other way around. I think most of us who have done B school kind of pretty much understand that the end goal was a job, without doubt. I think no exception. But I think of late, my own understanding has been that there are many different kinds of smarts. Okay, I think education provides you a smart framework, how to kind of go about. But I think intuition might be a bigger smart, right? If you really believe in that, I think education sometimes blunts you in your ability to think intuitively. It kinds of silhouettes and puts you in a particular framework to think, unless it's not very innate to you to be extremely intuitive. I've seen very smart people who can get a sense of the situation, okay, might not be having that degree of formal education. So yeah, business. One of the more smartest, individuals, at least I have met in my professional career, is a company in, Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra called Balaji Wafers. Okay, Balaji Wafers is like a 5,000 crore turnover company of a guy called Chandubhai Virani who just passed out 10th standard. It is bigger than Lay's, PepsiCo. Yeah. So I mean, there are several such individuals, and that's why when we hear, especially in the Western world, that people have dropped out of college to start out a business, then that the most important thing is perhaps primary education, your ability to compute, do stuff and all that, and then beyond that you have an appetite to kind of go ahead and do things. To Suphal's point, if you've done your formal education, you want to kind of get a job, this is one way to do it. Perhaps you might also reach a level at some point in time where you have learnt enough for you to gather courage saying, okay, let me start out on my own. I mean, the other one is the Nika founder, right? I am Ahmedabad, done everything. Who goes and starts a company at 51, 52, right? But they did that. So you've gone through a phase of everything and then you started out. So no, both ways.
But one of the reality will remain is that the cost of education today is high, right? So if you ask any person who is going through an MBA process, and if you tell them that, okay, are you ready to forego everything and start something on your own with at least almost 99.5% chances of it failing, right? There will be very small set of people who will be able to do it, and probably because of their financial background and so on, right? But at the same time, this whole risk-taking ability in MBA, they might not be strongly correlated. You can find risk-taking people everywhere. What I see as a great opportunity today is that people who are doing their MBA, who are ready to take a risk and say that, okay, I do not want to join a traditional company. I don't want to join a consulting firm. I don't want to join a FMCG firm. I will go ahead and join a startup, right? And I can tell you from my experience, I have back in 2014, 15, we were hiring from campuses, and there were a lot of kids who took that risk without even they were hearing about our company, maybe 7 days back they heard it. And they were like, I do not know anything about this company, but yeah, I like the talk which was there. I like the profile of the folks. I think this is wings, right? I think those are the people who took risks. And today, after 10 years when I see it, I feel that they did well in their career. Today, from a monetary perspective, from an intellectual perspective, from any other perspective, right? They are at the same level as any of the other folks who would have gone to any of the traditional companies, right? So yeah, if you ask me in a very pragmatic fashion, I've taken a loan of 20-30 lakhs and I want to go ahead and start something on my own. I think it's very, very tough.
Couple of things, right? I don't completely agree to what you just said, because we always generalize an exception. I was just looking at the data, 2018 data, 84% of billionaires have full college education. Only 16% of billionaires didn't have bachelors, right? So, but we glorify the people who are college dropouts. Out of this 16%, I'm sure more than 10% are college dropouts from Harvard or Stanford or Berkeley, which means they're brilliant kids who went to these schools and dropped out. So it's sometimes the data can be very misleading. That's what I feel when it comes to education part of it.
And risk taking is different than being a billionaire. You can be a billionaire because of multiple reasons.
No, billionaire is just an example. I think there is data, I couldn't find that, I've shared it in one of the colleges. Entrepreneurs also, right? Not just billionaires here, not about money. the people who have started companies in the last 10 years. And if you take out that data also, you'll be surprised that more than 13% are PhD holders. So again, we have this notion of generalizing exceptions, and it feels good. It's a nice story in India. Everything is nice. When there is a,
The question is it a necessary condition?
it's not.
I think
Definitely
that's
not.
the point.
Yeah.
That's a great point. I would want to echo that, right? See, that's what's called survivorship bias, right? So you pick, when you see a college dropout that becomes a billionaire, right? You look at that saying, wow, he's a college dropout, and you pick examples like Steve Jobs or, all the, Mark Zuckerberg or Bill Gates and all that, right? So that becomes your example. Right?
Yeah, that gets glorified.
That gets
possibly.
glorified.
Yeah.
So now you have billions or millions of people who dropped out of college doing, blue-collared work. Nobody's talking about them, right? So in fact, there's this, amazing example of survivorship bias in World War II when the planes were coming back, they had bullet holes in some of the planes that came back, and engineers were looking at which part of the plane do you want to reinforce. So they saw a lot of bullet holes and they said, hey, maybe this is the spots that you want to reinforce. But the engineers said, hey, wait a minute. These are the planes that made back. The ones that got shot down were shot in spaces where, the planes didn't make back, right? So then they reinforced the spaces where the bullet holes were not there. So that's the survivorship bias, right? We pick things like what you said, right? The narratives that we drive, saying college dropouts become billionaires, is because we are looking at those 5 individuals and we are, so that's the survivor, beautifully made.
But I think we have to, call out differentiation between an MBA and, a formal education received. MBA has been a more recent phenomenon actually, in the scheme of things. Businesses have existed far before MBA has existed, right?
But looking at, the kind of population we have, right? The opportunities out there, you don't have time to pick the right kid sometimes. So what happens is education or an MBA degree makes it easier for you to get into and apply. Now when you have 100 jobs, you have 2 lakh applicants, you need some filtration process. And usually an MBA degree versus a BBA degree gets you, up there. And I think many kids do it for that. So it gives them an opportunity to get in. And I completely agree. Is every child who's doing this MBA is doing it for money? And I tell kids it's okay, because I really love teaching, but I wanted to be a rich teacher. I was very clear about it from day one. So I did my job, I got my money, and I always taught. I've never compromised on teaching. I spend enough number of hours in any colleges I want today. And I think I get entry to whether it's IIT or IIM, both because of my education and because of my corporate badge. Right? It helps me get into whichever college I want today. So I don't regret doing my corporate job. I really enjoyed it. But my true passion was teaching all the time. I mean, not just now. From the grade of 7, I knew I want to be a teacher. But I don't think I lost out on anything. I could have been a good teacher, but a poor teacher mostly. But I'm very happy where I am right now because I followed my passion, but at the same time I knew what was important for me as in the ecosystem and followed it.
Just to bring to the point of MBA and risk correlation, when I go to MBA schools, I see every year the decline in the commitment to the content. So when I was teaching XLRI with the first batch with my chair director, and when I saw people in the morning with red eyes, ungroomed hair, and half the class sleeping, I was wondering, even if they do MBA for 2 years, what will they learn? They will just go with the package or the placement which is guaranteed somehow. But the learning, typically what I do nowadays is that I say that, you guys are great MBA and coming from a great institution, do the simple calculation, how much a particular hour of class costed you. And then you say that if I'm missing this class, I'm missing on, let's say, $10,000 or $20,000. Start with that. So if you ask, ma'am, I believe in the current state, MBA has nothing to do with any risk because the kids are not learning. If they learn, then we can do some correlation.
I think one really important aspect, at least I am seeing, which is shifting, is that 20 years back, credentialing was much more important, and therefore virtue signaling as to which college you are from used to play a much bigger role. I think of late people are realizing that just because you have credentialing does not mean you can solve problems. And I think that aspect is now, I think a lot more people are understanding that. Today, I think it's really genuine meritocracy. If you are, irrespective of your background, able to solve and understand a problem, I think you will definitely get a leg up as compared to somebody who just has an IIT IIM degree.
Still a long way to go. There is still a lot of impetus given to,
Acceptance is there, but my point was, will they get the platform, right? If they get the platform, I'm sure, as you said, definitely they will solve the problem, because we have seen it in our jobs also, right? Many kids from tier 3 colleges also, engineering are much better than some of the kids who might be in the tier 1, but not every child gets an opportunity to actually prove that point. So I think that's the reason.
and just from a cost of cost per head standpoint, organizations are also shifting their models. For example, for us in the compliance businesses, right, for tax, we are hiring BComs, and 6 months before they come into a big 4, we are investing. So this beautifully dovetails into our build strategy, then buy talent from outside. So even before they get our offer letter, we give them a stipend, we invest in them, right? We are preparing them to come into a big 4 basic things. So that way, it kind of helps us augment and optimize our cost, bringing in efficiency. So to your point, that shifts are happening. Yeah.
No doubt that the MBAs are needed and they're doing great value, but the question is different. The question is, are they
Risk.
They take the risk, or they are the ones who are there to control the risk? I see them as the ones who are basically there to define the framework and don't go out of this boundary. That's what their key job is. If somebody is from IIM, somebody is from a good college, he will certainly get it better. The fact that he has worked harder in his life, there's a high possibility he would succeed in real life also, or in the professional life. So there's no doubt MBA is one benchmark.
No, I think, like you mentioned, right, if you really compare CEOs and COOs, CEOs are the ones who don't need the MBA, right? They are the ones who are visionaries, who can jump without even figuring out whether they have wings or not. But CEO is the guy who makes sure when he falls, there is a bed down there. So you need frameworks, you need tools, you need an operational guy who can think through and make sure that if there is, this guy is taking a risk, but I need to take care of the shareholders' value here. So how do I make sure that it's not a fall flat, right? So some of these younger entrepreneurs, they don't care. They jump, and they succeed, they fail, they don't care, because they'll start the next one. But bigger companies, when you're taking the risk, you need to be aware of every aspect of failure and plan it out. So sometimes degrees help you understand it and come to the conclusions faster. But again, it's not a necessity, but it just gives you a framework to think through and make it faster, is what I feel.